This meeting will be recorded and will be available on the Highland Council website for the next 12 months. We'll move on to the agenda. Any apologies?
I haven't received any.
Yeah, I did get a message that Councillor McEwen will be a wee bit late. She has an appointment at 10 o'clock, but she'll be joining us shortly after that.
Okay.
The declaration of interest. Nothing there. Okay, just a little announcement. There's no Police Scotland scrutiny report for Caithness committee. There is currently a data embargo in place up to and including 8th of June. This is to permit the new Chief Constable to present her annual report to the Scottish Police Authority and Scottish Government. And another slight change in that item 8 will now be heard after the North Coast Visitor Centre. Margaret is in demand today and she has another meeting, so we've moved her to allow her to fit into the both meetings. Okay, the minutes, they've been circulated for noting. They were approved by full council 14th March. Now move on to item 4, North Coast Visitor Centre update. And I believe John has now joined us there. So I'll hand over to you now, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Thank you for inviting me along this morning to give you an update in the North Coast Visitor Centre. You'll find a report at item 4 in this morning's agenda that will provide some of the history of the facility in addition to an update with regards to progress and development as well as performance. Section 4 of this report will present the background to the current arrangements for the North Coast Visitor Centre, whereby it was agreed that High Life Highland would operate the facility on behalf of the Highland Council, with £75,000 of matched funding coming in from Council and from Dunray. We're only now in the final season of what was a 3-year plan and funding arrangement. It was agreed way back in 2019, pre-Brexit and pre-COVID, and indeed the facility opened its doors when some COVID restrictions were still in place, and this was only after an extensive refresh of the visitor centre, the cafe and the whole collection by the council properties team and by the wider High Life Highland Museums team, who were all working in the most challenging of circumstances at the time, but we did get the doors open in November of 2019. Section 5 of the report outlines the business and operating model that was agreed at the time, and it was agreed that this was to mirror Inverness Museum and Art Gallery, and it would be based on year-round museum and gallery offer, supported by programming for visitors and for the local community. So in terms of performance, the visitor numbers have increased year on year, with a total visitor number of 33,080 for 2023, and that's a 23% increase in the previous year. Growth continues month on month, and the latest figures that I have show that April of this year had a 26% increase in visitor numbers for April of last year. Just to put that into some sort of perspective, and by way of comparison, visitor numbers for the North Coast Visitor Centre sit at approximately 2/3 of the visitor numbers achieved by Inverness Museum and Gallery, which obviously has a larger collection, it's been around a lot longer, and it serves a considerably larger resident and visitor population. So arguably NCVC is punching well above its weight, and it's continuing to improve. NCVC has met all its agreed targets in terms of Visit Scotland accreditation, customer experience feedback and socio-economic measures. The financial outcomes that were originally agreed in 2019 have been achieved with the exception of the outturn for 23-24. So the last financial year shows a 30k deficit. This is largely down to staffing pressures, which includes long-term absence of some catering staff, as as well as increased costs of supplies and utilities. So all have contributed to a 30k deficit for the last financial year. A key aspiration for NCVC was that the offer be extended through establishing really strong partnerships, particularly with the local community. Section 7 of the report outlines some of the highlights in terms of partnership and programming, and conversations continue to develop and the number and breadth of partners is growing. There have undoubtedly been challenges, the most pressing of which continues to be the recruitment and the retention of suitable staff, particularly again in the cafe. I attended a very good council workshop last week to discuss the draft sustainable tourism strategy, and it's very clear that there's a huge challenge across the board facing hospitality, and there are unlikely to be any easy short-term solutions with regards to staff recruitment and retention. As the report states, funding is in place until this November, and discussions are now underway with the council and with Dunway to review the business model and consider the future. Unlike the last time, however, there's now a solid body of evidence, intelligence and experience that can help inform these discussions, and it's hoped that the discussions will help secure a positive way forward in providing a facility that is affordable and sustainable for Caithness. Thank you, Chair. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You're on mute, Chair.
Sorry, my mistake there. I'd muted there. Yes, John, thanks very much. Yeah, that's very encouraging, especially the increased number in visitors. That's really good. So I'll just open it up now to other members, and Carl, you've got your hand up there.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, John, for your presentation. I think it's worth taking a minute to reflect, John, just where we were in regard to Caithness Horizons, and I will get on the more positive elements, but I think it's worth reminding ourselves of a situation we faced at a fairly early stage in the last council term. I was in opposition, a councillor then, but I was a board member of what was then known as Caithness Horizons, a board that were charged with responsibility of looking after Caithness Horizons at the time, and it was a really difficult position. My recollection is being made aware from Highland Council's administration that funding was no longer going to be able to be provided. I'm sure Councillor Rees and Councillors Willie Mackay will have a good understanding. Willie, you were a fellow board member, and Councillor Rees was a member of the Highland Council budget team at the time, and it was a depressing scene, and one that we had to consider and react to. And I think there's a real lesson for this term and for this committee, and what we did then. I firmly believe that there are rarely any political situations that are unsolvable, but it's how you tackle these situations. It's understanding the scope of challenges, and it's involving people, getting people together and identifying what solutions are possible. And that's what we did at the time. I can distinctly remember convening a meeting in, I think it was in Thursdale's Pendleton Hotel. And many of the partners that are referred to in this paper now were present on that day. And that meeting was about finding solutions. So I've recently gone on record as saying that we should work more closely together as Caithness councillors. I think we failed to do that. There's evidence of that most recently. But look, I point to this as a very good news story that's emerged. And that's through working collaboratively in partnership with organisations that are willing to come and put their shoulder to the wheel in the problem. So getting back to Highland, John, the paper speaks for itself. Some of these figures are fantastic, and it was really interesting that you were able to compare some of the other data with similar organisations in Highland. I think that's really telling. So I think it's very much deserved. Well done to Highland in particular for moving us on to this point. And let's not forget it's only right and proper that we thank Doonry itself and of course Highland Council for the continuing support. So we get in, I think it's appropriate to consider next steps, John, as questions, and probably a couple of questions from the paper itself. Recruitment of staff, John, I was interested to read that, and we understand the issues. It'll be interesting to see, John, I don't know whether it's appropriate to divulge conditions, but are we speaking about, is it seasonal contracts or temporary contracts? I think it's always difficult, and the expectation that people can commit to organisations if they are in temporary contracts, I think it's unreasonable. But look, it's something we've got to work towards finding solutions for. In the past, we have had some discussions about how we can consider, points around sustainability you made, John. Can we consume other services into the premises itself? We had some discussion at the interesting to get an update, and I think we've got a new and exciting opportunity. When recently, John, I'm sure you'll be aware, we at Highland Council they passed the Highland Investment Plan, and part of that referred to community pods. And how that may feed into what we currently provide at Caithness and Horizons. So I think that'll do me at 2 points, John. One on the staff and one how we progress on sustainability. So thanks again, John. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Carl. Carl, is there anybody else wanting to raise anything or question wise? Well, Wally, on you go, and then John, you can come back then after that.
Well done, thank you, Chair. Yeah, John, good to see you again. Good to see you again. Yes, as Carl said, Councillor Rossi, I was a director previously on the Caithness Horizons. Yeah, reading through your report, John, all the very best. I know there's challenges there. You can see them without repeating what Councillor Rossi said, staff, etc., etc. But however, great to see your visitor numbers increasing. That's most important, because it is a wonderful facility when you go there to Thurso and you have a look around to see what we have to offer. It really is good. John, I'll just come straight to a question. One of the successes that was mooted years ago, John, was the use of groups within the county of Caithness, particularly Thurso. Now at 7.4, you've got a number of key agencies there, local groups. Now, are these regular users of the facility paying for the hire of a room, etc., or have you still got to explore groups? Because there are loads of groups around Caithness and Thurso which should or maybe could use the facility and pay accordingly. I think that was the secret of success in groups using the North Coast Visitor Centre. So, John, I'm not sure if you could give us any update on that, what usage the local people are making of the facilities that you have got to offer there. And one other mention, I'm delighted to see you've got the 4-star accreditation, because previously it was a 5-star accreditation, one of only 2 in the whole Highland Council area. But I'm sure you're working on that. But congratulations on maintaining the 4-star accreditation. So, John, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Wally. Raymond, do you want to come in before John? Or
yes, I wouldn't mind.
Yes, on you go then.
Thanks very much. And thanks for this report coming to the Caithness Area Committee. I've been asking for this for quite some time, and it gets it back on gets it back in the focus of us all now. So I'm delighted about that. A couple of other points. So before I even move on to the report, first thing is I'd like to see this in terms of all the facilities that we've got in Caithness at an area business meeting, in terms of all the Highland managed facilities that we have. I think it's good for members to be up to speed with that level of information, John, so I'd appreciate that between yourself and the chair at some point, facilitated by Phil, because I think it's, not just the North Coast Visitor Centre, but the Broch Centre, how the campus is doing, and all the other all the other places that High Life Highland are engaging with the Highland Council. I think that's really important for us to be fully up to speed with that. And also in terms of, and the reason that I'd like that to happen is because of some of the things that I think we should be looking at for Highland Council, and that is our common good facilities and absolutely maximising our opportunities with that. I went into Caithness House the other day there, there were no rooms available. We thought that there was a room had been booked for a particular meeting, and so we went to go to the town hall, shut. So what on earth is happening with that facility? So we were working on that with Mac to be able to start absolutely maximising the opportunities that we have with that, and it would be good to see something happening about that in the future. But back to this report here just now. The first one is, John, if I remember right, part of the issue that we had with that facility was the maintenance of the building, and we were chucking money at it. Quite a lot of money at it, even though it had a lot of money put to it in terms of its new facility. So I would have wanted to have seen how's that building in terms of the maintenance, and I know that that'll be between yourselves and Highland Council, but I'd like to know what is the current maintenance of that building like. Did we fix everything successfully, and there are no now current problems? Is it just ongoing maintenance? What's the future like in terms of cost to the council in terms of that going forward? Appreciate the numbers, but I always have a little bit of a sceptical hat in my head when it comes to numbers increasing. We have the numbers increasing at Wick Airport, but does that mean to say that we have maximised the numbers that we could ever get at Wick Airport? And obviously not. So what are we aiming to do in terms of visitor numbers at the North Coast Visitor Centre? We have increased our numbers, but is it really what we could be at or should be at in terms of maximising the benefit to the building? Of course, that will impact, if you currently have a 30k deficit, then bringing more visitors in may actually not help the situation, because if you have staffing issues and that is causing the biggest part of your 30k, how can we actually deal with more higher visitor numbers going forward? So there needs to be a positive plan in there, and to complement the positive outcomes so far in terms of visitor numbers. And I think those are the three: maximising the numbers, maintenance of the building, and the deficit. What is the current plan in terms of reversing that, so that we actually pull it round to going into a positive financial outcome picture in the future? Thanks very much.
Thanks, Raymond. John, do you want to answer these, and then I'll bring Struan in after that? Thanks.
Certainly. Councillor Rosie, recruitment and staff. It's the recruitment where we had issues initially were in permanent contracts, and ironically what we're finding in other facilities is if they're seasonal contracts, it tends to attract a different type of worker, and we have less issues if it's a seasonal contract, because other people, obviously students in that, can come back to the county for the summer. There might be people who are retired, so actually seasonal contracts tend to be more stable. It's not perhaps the way we would expect it, but that's what our experience has been. But we've had a mixture of, we've tried a variety of approaches, and we're going to continue to do so. I think obviously we'll go into conversations with council, and we're doing as to how they want to progress here. But we'll try that. We'll also, one of the things that we're doing in terms of the staffing is training staff to be capable in working in catering, in front of house, back of house, so multi-training existing staff so we can build up a pool of staff, and relief staff, which is critical as well. So that's something we're exploring. We're going to work with the team up there to do as well. Next one you had, Councillor Rosie, I think, was about the condition of the building. So I think the condition of the building, it's in very good condition. I must say the council maintenance team have been absolutely excellent. They've been really on the ball. They're taking care of it. It's never had to close because of its condition. There's only one outstanding ticket item on it, and it's to do with the entrance doors, and I think that'd be a bit of expense. I think it was quoted about £20,000 to fix the entrance doors. It's the automatic entrance. That's the only thing that's been outstanding. But as I say, the council maintenance team have been absolutely great. They've been on the ball, and there's been no recurring problems, and absolutely nothing's been allowed to build up, which is keeping track of things. So maintenance seems really good. The other thing, of course, is in terms of the utilities, because you remember some of the work the council previously did was they put in 2 new boilers, and that's proven dividends. So while the cost of utilities has increased, to be honest with you, it's marginal as to where it would have been had we had the old boilers in there. So there's a lid being kept in that as well. Community pods. And is there an opportunity to have other services delivered from there as well? Absolutely. Always, you know, at High Life Highland, we're always open to discussion how we can have multi-functional spaces within facilities. It's paid dividends in the past. Whether we bring services together, increases footfall. It means that customers have got multiple points of contact for coming into services, and it saves costs elsewhere as well. So always happy to look in terms of other facilities that we can bring into NCVC with council. I know a number of things have been discussed in the past, but there's nothing being brought forward specifically yet with regards to bringing other services in there. Absolutely look into that. Councillor Mackay, groups in the facility, local community groups, yes, all the ones listed there. Some of them will it'll be room hires they'll bring in, but the other thing, of course, is in terms of the programming. So if they're doing events and programming, they're bringing footfall in, and this will refer to your point as well, Councillor Bremer. Councillor Bremer, can we cope with additional footfall? The business case was predicated in having people in the facility and spending money in the cafe and in the shop. Now, the difficulty with that is if we don't have the cafe open, then we're missing an opportunity here, and it's something that we're really, really conscious of. We are absolutely conscious of that. So I think we are missing a trick. We're working on it. It's related to staffing. If we had that facility open and the cafe open more often, then it would definitely bring in dividends, and we could cope with the additional footfall. In fact, that's what is predicated by the business case in there. That might also spill out into being flexibility of hours, because we've changed the hours in NCVC already in relation to the local community, but if we had a more flexible workforce, it means we could tweak it, and if we knew that something was on in the community, we could then open the facility then, and that's something we're also conscious of and something that we're working to move towards in terms of staffing as well. So in terms of maintenance, also, Councillor Bremner, no outstanding problems. It's only the main entrance door. The council are aware of that, and we're looking to remedy it, hopefully in advance of the new winter season coming up. Once again, numbers, yes, we can cope with additional numbers, but it's about maximising the income that we get. We need to be honest, it's maximising the income that we get through the numbers coming in as well. As I say, the shop's working really well. The shop has been, the retail element, we're using local producers, and the visitors love that. They love getting things in Caithness and in Thurso that they can only get there, things they're not getting elsewhere in cruises or bus trips. That's really working well for us. And linking in with the Society of Caithness Artists. So if we've got on an exhibition, it's an opportunity for the artists to sell some of their work as well. And that's been really beneficial. So it's a good model for us to develop further as we move forward. In terms of planning with visitors, well, this is the conversation that we're getting into with Dunray and with council about how they would like to see the business model moving forward. Is this still the business model we'd like to work with? The one that we had 3 years ago? Has a lot changed since then? We can go into discussions with that. Is it still a year-round facility we're looking at? There's a whole host of discussions that we can have there. There's been some real benefits from having it year round, but there's obviously challenges. You make less money in the winter, we know that. Is there an opportunity to have programming for the community, but perhaps not have the visitor element, which would be the museum in the winter? There's a whole host of topics that we can now enter into discussion with council, and hopefully we can develop options that council can consider along with Dunray. And once again, that everything here will be done to making it a sustainable facility. So hopefully I've answered the questions so far. If I haven't, please just let me know, and I'll be happy to revisit them.
Thank you, John. That's excellent. Struan, you want to come in now?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and apologies. I should have clocked this before, but just because an organisation that I am involved with, indeed that I chair, is listed in the report, I just wanted to put a transparency statement as the chair of the Doonray stakeholder group. I originally was appointed through the Highland Council, so I think it's still appropriate that I contribute. First of all, John, thank you very much for bringing forward the report. I know this is essentially the outcome of the members' discussion and wanting to kind of know where we were in terms of progress, and really welcome the fact that you've not just come to us, I think, with quite a small nugget of information. It's well presented. There's an awful lot of stuff here for us to digest, and we really appreciate you bringing that to the area committee. And I would just concur with Councillor Bremner that I feel this is a really good format to try and bring more HLH stuff to the area committee's attention, because you guys do have a very substantive footprint, and quite frankly, over the years we've asked you to deliver an awful lot of stuff that the council would have historically done, and that would have obviously come back directly in our purview. So I think that this model is very, very good. In terms of the report, John, just wanted to not dwell on points that have been made by other councillors, but in terms of the financial and performance figures, obviously very welcome that we're getting to a point that I think you kept on talking about, essentially a sustainable model. Obviously disappointing about the last financial year, but you've outlined why that is, and I think speaking on behalf of anybody that employs anybody in this area, we know that staffing issues is something that's it's not specific to Caithness and North Sutherland, but certainly an area where there does need to be, I think, a degree of flexibility and looking around about the art of what's possible. And I appreciate that you guys are going through that. In terms of the next steps, you did outline that obviously there'll be dialogue with what's now NRS Doonray, who essentially you guys are asked or tasked by them to kind of carry out part of their heritage element, and that's an ongoing commitment to the community. The other side of it is obviously the local authority, where we play a direct role, not discounting the fact that we might be looking at how the model might be delivered, or what these organisations are looking for. Do you anticipate that it would probably be a similar sort of ask, John, that would need to be coming back to local authority, effectively a multi-year ask where there can be a degree of certainty, or is at the moment, are we looking at a blank bit of paper and everything's on the table? It'd be interesting to know from a HLH perspective, have you guys got an idea of what type of ask would make it viable, I suppose, for you guys to look into it? So appreciate that, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Drew. And Matthew, I can bring you in just now and then give John a chance to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Morning, everybody. John, good to see you, albeit on the screen. Be nice to be meeting one of these days for real in that lovely town hall that Raymond was talking about in Wick, but that's for the future. Some very quick questions, John. I actually think it was Raymond possibly who queried the maintenance. From that time some years ago, when there were a lot of money had to be spent on the repair of the building, a lot of it was caused by simple things like blocked roads and water ingress at the top, causing damage to the timbers and the stonework. I'm assuming this is the case, but is there a sort of regular regime to make sure that doesn't become a problem again? Is the first question. Overall, I'm just sort of listening to you. You can tell, feel this is a big success story, and it's a real success for the town, and congratulations to everybody who's involved. I vaguely remember a few years ago, I'm really glad that Councillor Mackie is on the call here. There was I think it was him, there was some talk about increasing the presence of the building, advertising it more, and possibly having a big Caithness flag hanging outside the building. Struan might be able to confirm or deny this if it's correct. And I have met occasionally people sort of saying, where is it? That kind of thing. I know there's new signage on the A9 and things like that. I think most people are finding it. It's just a query. Is there anything more you feel should be done in that respect? And obviously, could we help with it? And the final short point is that over the weekend, a parent of a 14-year-old was telling me that their child had just landed their first part-time job. And bearing in mind what you were saying about the staff shortages, I don't know if this is a total non-starter, but is there a potential for liaison with Thurso High School? It could be a perhaps really good experience for some of the youngsters just to do a few hours a week, or almost a pool maybe of them, and they might not be. Well, I don't think they should be replacing a full adult doing the job, but they, it would be useful, right? Just it could be a good experience for a young person doing that. Teaches them a lot of sort of life skills, and to be quite blunt, if it enables the cafe to be open longer and improves the flow of income over the winter months, I just wonder if that's worth considering. That's my little list. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. John, you want to respond to that?
Certainly. Councillor Mackey, I believe you were asking about the future in terms of funding, if it's going to be a multi-year agreement again. I think as far as High Life Highland's concerned, it's an open book. It was originally 3 years because I think it was said that 3 years, it takes 3 years for any business to really become established. So you get an idea as to how it's going to work out. And I think it's been very useful, the initial 3 years. It's let us pause. We can take a step back. We can look and see what's worked, what hasn't worked. And it gives us the opportunity to look if there is a fresh approach that we can adopt. I know that Dunray have been really, really supportive, and they would welcome any, certainly the conversations I've had with them, they would welcome looking at any sort of innovative funding mechanism, and I'm sure the council will be looking at it as well to see if there's something different we can do. But certainly from our point of view, whatever works based on the evidence that we've got, based on the direction that council and Dunray are looking for, whatever works, Councillor Mackey. Councillor Rees, regime of maintenance, yes, the council maintenance officer is really on the ball. As I say, he's got a good relationship with the staff, with Susan in there. They're monitoring it, and alongside that, we've got the High Life Highland maintenance officer as well, Craig Steedman, and the liaise really well on it. So we're aware that we don't want any issues to build up, because then we obviously know the cost that's involved in that. And it's, as I say, the works have been done really effectively to date, and it's working well. It's working really, really well. Big flag, yes, I believe there were a series of flags that were initially discussed at the time. I think that the costs, to the best of my recollection, the costs were prohibitive. And it was to do not with the flags themselves, because I believe that there's support available in the community to provide the flags. It was in terms of getting the, it was to do with the flagpoles and the mountings onto the building at the time, because it was a heritage listed building. There was all sorts of complications involved in that. Happy to reopen that conversation though, and if there's anything else that we can do in terms of advertising and publicising the building, more than happy, and we'll have a wee look at that. I'll discuss that as part of the new negotiations. More than happy to revisit it. In terms of staffing, the potential liaison with Thurso High School, yes, absolutely, we would look at that. You'll know probably that we've got a leadership academy in High Life Highland, whereby we get young people and we take them through various qualifications. But part of that as well, of course, with paid employment. I'd be really keen to have paid employment for young people in there, and look at that. And that would be in terms of perhaps North Highland College and the schools, and see if there's something we can do to build a flexible workforce in there. We would absolutely look at that. And it's the same terms and conditions that we have for all staff. So it would be under the normal High Life Highland terms and conditions, which is the same as the council. So we would absolutely look after the young people. And not only that, I think it would support a career choice for them. If they were thinking to move into a career choice for tourism, for heritage, based on knowledge of the county, that can only be a good thing in our book. So we will I guarantee you we will absolutely be exploring that avenue with the school and with North Highland College as well. And with there'll be conversations with Dunray and the apprentices. In the past, we had really good conversations with Dunray in terms of the apprentices, and we'll look and see if there's something we can do there, because I know some of the apprentices are working as guides. They're doing some guiding in behalf of some of the visitors. I'm thinking that's a fantastic idea. So we'll definitely include that in the discussions that we're having with Dunray as well. As I say, who have been wholly supportive all along. I think that was all, Chair.
Excellent, John. Thanks very much. As I said, a very positive report there, and we'll certainly we'll get you back to a EBM meeting and possibly later on to get you back here again to give us an update on the situation. So thanks again, John. That's excellent. Oh, Matthew, you want to come in there just before? You're on mute, Matthew.
Thanks. I agree with everything just saying. It's really heartened, John, also just to hear that's such an enthusiastic response to the idea of perhaps young people getting involved. Did you say, going back to the flag issue, it was a point, it was something to do with the fact it was a listed building? Because I may be wrong, and Struan might be able to help me here. When we discussed this before, I might be wrong. I think we were told there had previously been flag poles there. So I just kind of, excuse the pun, just wanted to flag it up. But you know, if it's happened before, I mean, Councillor Mackey's had more to do with this than I did. I do think it just would sort of complete the appearance of the building. I think think it'd be very attractive.
Okay, Matthew. Struan, would you want to come in there?
Yeah, very briefly, Chair, because I'm just conscious this probably drives into the conversations that you'll be wanting to have, John, around about the negotiations and what's expected and how the different agencies can support. But I do recall, I think, what Matthew is saying, and one of my big heartaches is when we do get visitors that don't make it to Caithness Horizons because they haven't seen it for whatever reason where it is in the streets. So yeah, I think that's something that we can probably pick up externally, Matthew, and see how we can collectively support it. I'm conscious that we've got a nice big digital notice board in the centre of the town as well. So I think there's lots of ways that we can point people in the right direction.
Okay, thanks, Struan. Yeah, John. Just one final comment. You know what? We're getting a few cruise liners coming in now, and it would be excellent if you could work around that as well. I think you do get a sort of inkling towards when the ships are due in, so that'll be a good bonus. So thanks again, John. And I would just like the committee is invited to note the current position in regards to finance and performance. Progress has been made in terms of partnership and programming challenges. There's a few of them as well to the current operating model. Funding is in place, so there's been discussions will be underway between partners to consider options for the future of the facility. So are you happy to note?
Yes.
Noted.
Thank you very much. Well, John, thanks again, and we'll be in touch and have you at another meeting for an update.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
John. Okay, now we'll jump to item 8, Housing Performance Report, and Margaret's very kindly been able to move around a wee bit to help it. So I'll hand over to you, Margaret, now.
Chair, thank you very much for accommodating my diary. I've got the Wester Ross Committee in a while, so that was the reason. Members are asked to note the information provided in the Housing Performance Report for the period 1st of April 23 to 31st of March 2024. My colleague, Colin Sutherland, Principal Repairs Officer for the North, is here. And Colin, I'll be able to speak to you about repairs and tenancy management.
Yes, yep. Hello all.
Hi, Colin. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take you through the 3 tables there that have been provided for you. 5.2 starting. The average length of time taken for emergency repairs. As you can see, there is a small reduction in the hours there over the last year, going from the quarter shown from 2022 to 23 to going through to quarter 1, 2, 3 and 4, as you can all see. And if we go over the page, we'll go on to non-emergency repairs, table 2. The average time taken to complete non-emergency repairs. Going by this table, there is a small reduction in the performance, which is good, and it just highlights the averages there, as you can see. On the bottom one, the bottom table, table 3, is the voids table. And this table overall is also quite good. The table shows some improvement from last year in the 4 quarters, but where we can, we try to use in-house trades and not use outside contractors. This is a way of saving money, and this can lead to some delays, as you can see going through the tables. But overall, the 3 tables, the performance is quite stable, as you can see, I think. And if there's any questions, just ask.
Okay, Colin, thanks very much. I'll open it up to the members. Jan, I think you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for that, Colin. I'm just going on about the non-emergency repair. I put in a non-emergency repair about 10 weeks ago and it's not repaired yet. He did get back to me and say it was a non-emergency repair, which I can totally understand, but it's still not been rectified yet. It was a fence.
Well, if you could give me the address again, I can look into it for you. That's no problem at all.
Perfect. Thanks, Colin. Will do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Wally, you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a very good report indeed. Very good indeed. Well done, Margaret and Colin. Yes, your targets are well met. The 12-hour target for your emergency, I can see here. Your non-emergency within 8.9 days, absolutely fantastic. I know you're having a problem with material. That's quite understandable. And the relets are not too bad either. Well within the target of 35 days. Question? Yeah, let me see if I get a question. Colin and Margaret. At 7.5, yes, on the early intervention, what is the uptake on advice and assistance from specialist services for those in financial hardship? Thank you both.
Councillor Mackay, I'll maybe present to you the figures on the rent arrears and I'll maybe discuss that with you in more detail once Colin's finished. Is that okay? Great.
Okay,
thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. Raymond, you want to come in there?
Yeah, I always like to see how we can actually improve on our position rather than maintain it. So I always like to hear what we can do to be able to do that or to improve the current performance. Even though the current performances are within target, around about target. What is it that we can do to improve the service that we have? So I wouldn't mind hearing, and particularly housing repairs and that one, if you wouldn't mind. Margaret, in terms of arrears, I'm noticing that for Thurso, it's with 92,589 for Q4 last year and 84,712, and then 122,780 against Q4 13,1707. Is there what I've noticed is that between Q1 it went from 112 up to 100 dash near 150 and is now back down to 132. Whereas with Thurso went 82 to 104, back down to 84. Is there something seasonal that happens and around about that, or is that just the way that it goes, Margaret?
It's going to be quite difficult to answer your question. I mean, there are seasonal ups and downs. There absolutely are. I'm not sure that I'm actually able to fully explain those figures to you the way you've presented them back to me, other than to say that I'm happy with the performance at the end of Q4. We've worked very hard. We've come through a very difficult period. There was government restrictions on the sad cases that we had to progress to court, which were above 250. Below that, we weren't able to do that. That embargo's been lifted. But to answer your question, Willie, we very much look at supporting our tenants. Going to court's not the be all and end all. That's not what I'm aiming for, to control arrears. But we do have to control arrears. We absolutely do. We're fully staffed now. We've got the optimal 500 houses per officer, which is great. 4 housing management officers across the whole county, which is tremendous. They're all working very, very hard. We have lots of referrals to the intensive support officers and welfare support team. CAB money advice is also, we're signposting daily to the CAB. We still have short-term housing support available to us in Caithness through New Start Highland. And increasingly, for instance, charities are coming into the frame now. Hospitality Action. We've seen quite a few of our tenants who have fallen behind working in the hospitality industry have been able to approach that charity and have had some fairly significant payments. So it is very, very much about supporting our tenants, Councillor Mackay. It's about early intervention. and it's about building that relationship with our tenants, and that's what will continue to show a good performance on arrears.
Okay, thanks, Margaret. Has any other members got anything they want to raise? I'm not seeing anything there. No. No, thanks, Margaret. That's good. I like the fact that you're emphasising that you support the tenants. It's really important that they do get supported, and I know, Fine, you do a great job in that. So thank you and your team for that anyway.
Thank you.
If there's no other points to be raised, I think we'll put forward to the committee that we support note the information in the report, and thanks very much for Colin and Margaret.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're now on to go back to the original item 5 now, and Annika, I think you're there, and I'll hand over to yourself now.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, members. I bring to you with an overview, a report that provides an update of key information in relation to the schools within the Wick Academy Associate School Group, or ESG as we call it. And it provides an overview of attainment, attendance and positive destinations data with links to further information, as you can see within the report. Please note that the information shared within this report is for session 22-23 unless otherwise stated differently. Just to give you a little bit of context of Wick ESG, the primary schools in this area served 858 pupils in the primary settings. ELC settings served 209 children, and the secondary school served 735 young people, and that was off census in September 2023. So the recommendations today are for you members to scrutinise and note the content of this report. Now, as you can see from the report, there's a lot of information within, a lot of things that can be unpicked. So I would like to ask that if any specific questions comes up today around individual schools, maybe we can bring it back into an area business meeting where I can also bring in and invite relevant head teachers so they can respond around their schools. However, within the report, I would like you to note how the schools rated themselves on the Standards and Quality Report as of June 2023. And as you will also note from the report, 5 of the schools within the ESG had an inspection by HMI within the last 5 years. And we had a couple of them recently within this session just a few months ago. The overview for the ESGs, for the primaries within the ESG, that show that most primary schools overall had an attendance are higher than national and Highland average, and the secondary schools is actually slightly below the national Highland average. The attainment overview for primary shows that some schools within ESG, they perform well and they perform in line with national Highland average in some areas, but also some schools perform below. However, the trend shows an improving picture across the ESG. Please note data of the smaller schools have not been shared due to children can probably be identified because of the size of the schools. School leaver data achieving literacy and numeracy in level 4, we're talking about secondary now, they were above virtual comparator, and the number of school leavers achieving a literacy and numeracy level 5 were below in 2022 compared to virtual comparator. In senior fees, the average tariff score was below virtual comparator for the lowest 20%, but had been improvement from previous years. Middle 60% and highest 20% they perform above. For pupil positive destination for 16 plus, Wick High is marginally, and I mean marginally, lower than Highland and national average, just slightly below. And in the appendix, for your information as well, you can see the projected school rules for each school going forward. With that, I'd like to thank you and invite any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annika. Raymond, you've got your hand up there.
Yes, I do. Good morning, Annika. Nice to see you this morning, and thanks for the report. Just a couple of points that I wouldn't mind bringing to the committee's attention and to your own attention. In terms of the small schools and the attendance, I consider that to be an excellent attendance, and even though some of the queries might be raised in terms of the likes of Caithness and schools like that, but we are, because of the nature of the geography that we have in Highland, where you have a school that might have one child that is, ill for a particular reason, as noted by an authorised absence as opposed to an unauthorised absence, that can have quite a detrimental effect on small rural schools in comparison to any average, whether it's regional or national. So taking that into consideration, I think it's quite clear to see that kids like going to school up here, or I'd like to think that they like going to school up here in the Wick ASG area. I note that the attendance of Wick is slightly below average, but it is marginally there or thereabouts. And with anything in this report, I'd welcome the opportunity at an area business meeting to maybe go into a wee bit more depth of how we can actually manage to attend to that, or keep an eye on it, or understand what the work is that's going on to be able to improve on any situation, even where it's excellent. I mean, we could always do a wee bit more than excellent, couldn't we? Yeah. Not taken away from that, it's at that satisfactory level. What I would look at and say that I'm really heartened to see is the exclusion rate. That's an excellent inclusion rate, I would like to say, that's showing there for Wick High School. And also, I wouldn't mind again if Seb, the head teacher at Wick High School, could come along. I know I've met with Seb very, very recently, just in my normal course of engagement with schools, understanding how things are with them, and I've noted the head teacher's considerations and how they keep that inclusivity going, and the work that's going on in terms of supporting that, and the nature of all the needs of all the children that are in the school. And it would be good to hear from Seb at an area business meeting, just to give us some more, just so we've got the facts at our fingertips in terms of what their ongoing concerns might be going on in the future, and how they're being incorporated into any plans that the council has. But in terms of the inclusion rate, which I like to call it rather than the exclusion rate, understanding that the facilities are there to maintain that level of inclusion, and that the work that is going on with the staff and the pupils is also obviously achieving results there. So I'm really pleased at that. And personally, speaking with the head teacher, I've got a fair understanding of how they're hoping to keep that going on in the future. 7.1, when you have so many rural schools, it's quite difficult to be able to understand just exactly how we can be satisfied with the results there, because of the fact that the small school roles and small school roles, where there might only be one child in primary 7, or one child in primary 4, or one child in primary 1, you are readily identifying that child. So that's not satisfactory. But understanding at an area business meeting the overall work that's going on in terms of primary school attainment in these areas would be good. So if that can be taken on board. 7.2, in terms of the secondary school attainment, I agree with you. It's there or thereabout, but again, understanding how we can maintain that or improve that would be good. But the two that take my attention all the time, and you can clearly see there's a difference in Wick as opposed to the rest of the Highlands and the whole of Scotland, and there has been for years. And all the time that I've been a councillor, our children, when they leave school, go into direct employment. That's we see that the whole time. that's, for me, that's great, because that could include apprenticeships, that could be training on the job going further forward, that is supported by higher education and supported by further education, but we don't see that because of the fact that it is in the direct employment. And if there was a way that I could understand how we can flesh out that information, that would be absolutely fantastic. But that is not the way that the collation of the information goes for us when we're a local authority looking at our pupils going on to what we call recognised positive destinations. And maybe there's a little bit of work to be done there with some other organisations, Focus North. I've just raised that recently with them. In terms of understanding the training needs for the skills gaps that we have in the local area and our economic forecasts going forward, which then takes me on to the last one, and that's the school rules, because the school rules sit there showing as if we have, and you see it in the papers, and it's doom and gloom, and yet these school rules are forecast 10, 15 years from now if we don't do a thing about it. Now, to put that in context, when I first got elected 7 years ago, Wick High School was never forecast to exceed its capacity. And we were thinking, depopulation was a real thing that was going to be happening by 2024. And here we are in 2024. And the school has gone over its capacity. So things change in a number of years. So for me, we've got to get that in context. If we're out there talking to reporters, if we're out there talking to the community, we've got to get that picture in context. But our communications department needs to help members do that. That went out, that report went out, but there was nothing in terms of the context of what we should see that in. How would the community have looked at it had we said, and I'm sorry, I will finish, Chair, but how would it be if the community had been told, well, look what we were told 7 years ago, and we have an overcapacity school? And I remember about 2 years ago when I saw this report, and I actually said the exact same thing then as I'm saying now, and it was reported in the press as a good news story because of the fact that, hang on a minute, our school has actually gone over capacity. Who would ever build a school that would never be able to host a brand spanking new school that would never be able to hold the capacity of the children in there? Well, we just went and did it. So we've got to be very careful that we are not forecasting ourselves into doom and gloom and not preparing ourselves for what actually might need to be an extension on the school. Now that is hope, isn't it, for depopulation? So there you've got it. I love getting involved in this report. You know that, and I think I've done it justice today, and you certainly have, and so have all the staff and the kids of the Wick ASG area. Thanks very much, Annika. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much for that input. Willie, do you want to put anything towards?
Want to add to that? A comment really, Annika. Very good to see you there. Yes, this is a very good report indeed. Overall, we always hear about attainment, and accomplishment. But just look at 4.2. Just look at it. Standards and quality reports are all good, very good, satisfactory. Early learning centres are all good, very good, and satisfactory. For me, that's a wonderful platform to have. I've got great confidence. Well done, Annika. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Willie. I'll just bring in Jan in, then you can come back to us. Okay.
Thank you, Annika, and thank you very much for this report. This report is easy to read, easy to work out, and it is a very detailed, very good report. And thank you for all your colleagues that helped put through this report. And as Willie and Raymond has said before, I mean, the standard is going up, and it is good to see the destination of the pupils in Wick High School is higher than the Highland or the rest of Scotland, and it's all down to our teaching staff and everything that you do as well, Annika. So yeah, I mean, the small schools, you can't identify them, and as Willie said, everything's good, satisfactory, good. I mean, as Raymond said, there's always room for improvement. There is always room for improvement, but I think we have to take this as very positive, because in the past, I felt that Wick High School was getting, sort of degraded, you know, sort of put down because of the education and whatnot. But these figures actually tell a different story. So thank you, Annika, and I'll be singing the positive praises about the Wick High School. And Raymond, how did you get into the school with the new protocol that we're not to go into schools?
I went into school before the new protocol, but even
All
then,
right.
I did follow through with the proper protocol before I went into the school at that time.
Okay. I'm just checking up on you. You know that.
Thanks,
and it
thanks,
would
Jan.
be good. It would be good if Said come along and sort of gave us his forecast of where he sees the future in the next 5 years, with it, where he wants the school to go to. Because I think it's an excellent headmaster.
Thanks,
We're very
Jan,
lucky,
for that.
very lucky to have him.
Okay, thanks. Annika, I don't know, do you want to come back with anything there?
Yeah, just thank you for all the comments, and obviously around attendance and or inclusion rate, as we call it, and also about attainment. I have to say your head teachers in this ESG, they really know their context of the communities, and that's also part of the success of the schools, very much so. And they work with their families around getting kids back to school if there's an attendance issue, but also supporting the children appropriately. They, as I said, they have a very good understanding, and that also goes for Thurso ESG, I have to say. So yeah, I've taken some notes here about as well about positive destinations, Council Bremner, just to see if there's any way we can kind of look further into that, the fuller journey. As you said, it kind of just gives you a kind of a limited overview there. So no, thank you very much. I will pass on your comments to the head teachers, and also if we can arrange for Mrs. Andecki to maybe to come along to a future meeting as well.
Yes, no problem at all. Raymond, do you want to come back in there?
Yeah, one final point. Thanks very much for letting me back in. Annika, if also, I would like to reflect on the fact that the care inspector, when they go into our schools, the schools inspector, I beg your pardon, when they go into the schools and we read those reports, or making sure that we do read those reports, I understand what these reports are for, but I don't necessarily always agree with maybe the take of the inspector, and because when you have an underpinning knowledge of some of the schools that you are working with, or you're going into, or you're meeting the teachers of, you know, I think that can you feed it back to the teachers as well, that not members can also take a view on those reports. They don't necessarily have to, you know, it's there for a view, but that we don't. I certainly don't necessarily agree with absolutely everything that's in them, but they are there as a point in time on a particular day, reflective of that particular set of circumstances that was prevailing on that school on that day, but may not necessarily reflect the whole period of time that that report is actually looking at. So I just wanted to put that in there so that teachers and staff of schools can actually understand that in particular cases, certain schools that get certain reports, sometimes we might not agree fully with what's in the report. Thanks very much.
Okay, Raymond, thanks for that. Yeah, and just before you go, another good positive report there. So excellent work. And as I said, we'll get you along to an EBM or some of your people anyway. So thanks again for that. Excellent.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Annika.
And the committee is invited to note the contents of the report.
All noted. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, move on now to item 6, and I'll call in Mark to. I'd like to thank you, Mark, for your hard work on Friday, last minute, to manage to find some more funds for us. So well done.
No problem. Good morning, members. So I have 2 reports for you today. The first of which is an assessment of applications which were deferred back at the committee on the 29th of January. So I don't propose to go through the whole report in detail. Members will have had the opportunity to read through it. But in summary, we have 4 applications that have come back with additional information for consideration. The total value of the request of those 4 applications is £223,067. But as the chair's just mentioned there, the good news is that after confirming underspends on projects in previous rounds of coastal. Well, this was of Highland Coastal Communities funding. We now have £121,434.27 available in the Caithness area. Given that the request for funding still exceeds the amount available, I would propose therefore to go through each project and summarise it, and then open the discussion to committee members through the chair. As members propose grant approval values, I shall update the amount which is left as available. And once members are content with their proposed approvals, I'll seek agreement through the chair for approval of the awards. Is everybody okay with that at the moment?
Yep.
Excellent. So, referring to the first project, this was John O'Groats Development Trust's application for refurbishment. It's predominantly for refurbishing the toilets and making them more accessible. It's also for new external doors, electrical works, including an emergency hookup for a generator and LED lighting. They have in place, or they're looking for match funding from Stroopster Wind Farm and also using their own reserves. Requests for £25,000 from the fund. And the reason for deferral was that members wanted to see that they had their consents in place and were ready to proceed. So I've had confirmation from the Development Trust that they do not need planning consent, but they did apply for a building warrant, and that is now secured and in place. Any comments?
Any hands? I haven't seen any hands up yet. Any comments on that at all? Raymond, yes.
Good morning, Mark. Thanks very much
morning.
for your report there, and thanks very much for letting us know about the additional amount of money. Can I just ask you, is it competent if members were to consider the 120? So it's £121,434. Yes.
Correct, yes.
And my consideration has been before, and I have said this before on the record, that in terms of the Wick Harbour Trust and the options that they've got and the financing and the kind of project that they're looking to do, I did not think that it was appropriate that this fund in particular should be used for that kind of project, and that there are other funds available, and there were other actions in terms of much bigger funding that's required in terms of the bigger vision for that particular issue that they're facing at the Wick Harbour. So for me, I would be looking to exclude. I would be actually looking to reject that application at this point now. That would leave the other three applications at £123,067. Am I correct with that? Can you just confirm my figures are correct?
I will do a quick sum. Yes, that's easy because that's removing 100,000 from the bottom line. Yes, that would be £123,067. Yes.
So my consideration is that these three applications should be awarded pro rata. In other words, there's only 121,434. Therefore, the applications that have been made there should be reduced so that we can get to the 121,434. I was going to do the calculation myself, but I'm sure that you could manage to do that, Mark. So they would be reduced in terms of the percentage that of the total. So if 27,000, just let me do it. I might as well do it. So 27.
Can I just come back in on that? I think one thing that might be worth me doing is that for some of those projects, because they've applied for their match funding or they have it in place, it may be prudent to reduce that from one particular project because they have a breakdown of costs, so they can still achieve whole aims. So
okay,
Home Start in
Home Start
particular,
Caithness.
they have a breakdown of works, so you could reduce that amount by a small amount of works, one element. So on the summary sheet, you will see that they have, bear with me, I'll just open that up. They have security alarm, office cost works, roof repair works, plumbing works, which are £2,000-3,000 each. So that award could get reduced by an element of that work, and they could seek that funding for that package elsewhere rather than trim off the other ones.
Thanks. I would consider that that's a good suggestion. I would also consider that it would be a good suggestion, given the fact that there will be another round of this, that element could be deferred and could be met from the next and that I would be if it wasn't available to be found somewhere else, I would be minded to consider that would be deferred to the next round, and it could be the case that would be successful there. So based on that, that's my proposal. I'm seeking a seconder for it, and that may actually give us a result today. Thank you.
Okay, Raymond, thanks for that. Have we got a seconder for Raymond's proposal there? Is that sorry?
Yes, Chair. Seconded.
You're seconded. Thank you. Well, I see it. Jan's got a hand up. I'll bring her in a second. Right. So I've got a proposal there. Jan, do you want to come in just now?
I was actually just wanting a wee bit more further information. I hear what you're saying about the home start, and I can totally agree with that, deferring some of the funding for that. I was wanting a wee bit more information about the cafe in Thurso, and I know all the hard work Wick Harbour has actually put into gaining funds for all this, but I think it would be a good sign if we actually awarded them something, maybe not the 100,000, but something, and just to show that we appreciate all the hard work they're getting for the funding, and we can't give them the 100,000, but as a token we can give them 25 or 50,000, because it is our harbour, and it really doesn't sit well with me not giving them anything. It really doesn't. I know they've worked hard and they can get money, and there'll be a lot of money coming in. But what this harbour does for Wick itself will more than pay back what we give them, and tourists and funding and business. And it just doesn't sit well with me not giving them anything at all, Raymond. Sorry, I can't agree with you in that one. I think we should give them something. And they have got a lot of funding themselves, and it might not cost that, but it might be over, it might be under, but it doesn't sit well with me not giving them anything, because it is a big part of the Wick community, and they're trying to improve it, bring more business in, more tourists in, and more business brings more prosperity for Wick, etc., etc. So that's my take on that. I think we should reconsider giving Wick something. And I'd like to hear a wee bit more about this Wick Cafe, because is this the cafe down at the harbour, the pier?
Sorry, Jan, which cafe?
Is this
Thurso Cafe.
Is this down at the pier where it's donations rather than costing? You just give a donation for whatever you have, your tea, your coffee, your soup, rather than fixed prices.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if they're just giving their food away, it's not really sustainable, is it? Because some people might put money in, but other people won't. So I just there about sustainability. No, Mark, Mark, if you could give me a wee bit more information. But again, I would like you to revisit the Wick Harbour. Maybe not give them the 100,000, but I think in a gesture we should give them something.
Okay, Jan, thanks for that. Raymond, do you want to come back? Because I know we've got a proposal there and a seconder. You want to come back in there, Raymond?
Yeah, well, in the light of, I think the way that this will go, or I would expect it to go, is I've put a proposal on the table. It has been seconded. Therefore, there would need to be, that will be the motion, and therefore, Jan, you would have to put an amendment forward, and that amendment would have to be costed. Therefore, as I understand it, you will have to show who of the other what other proposal in terms of who else of the other three who would be reduced to be able to give to the Wick Harbour. But and I'm happy to hear what that amendment might look like. I do have my thoughts based on what Jan has said there just now in terms of the Wick Harbour. I think that we can't be tokenistic or be seen to be tokenistic. It has to be, our considerations have to be on firm, considered considerations in terms of options that are available. Highland Council has been supporting the Wick Harbour in terms of the other areas that it can go. And Mark, I believe that you probably have an understanding of what that engagement has been. This is an application out of many applications that the Wick Harbour are making to many other areas for big sums of money. So this, to me, just giving them something because of the fact that we want to appreciate what they do and what have you. There's not the fact that I don't believe that this is the right fund to be able to support that does not take away from the fact that I believe that everything that they're doing is absolutely fantastic. And totally agree with what Jan was saying there just now, but this fund is not the right fund. There are other funds that are available for Wick Harbour to look at, and they are big pots of money, not smaller pots of money like we can benefit many of the organisations here, and that's one of the reasons that. I don't think it detracts from our support for Wick Harbour in many other ways and many other pots of funding that we can work with them to attract money from. So, but I just don't feel that this is the right fund for them. 100,000, Mark, I believe, is around about a quarter of the fund. Is that correct?
That would have been. It was more than a quarter of what the allocation that went to committee last time was, and it's just under a quarter of the original.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I'm right with that then. And I don't think I would be wanting to set a precedence of organisations coming to take a quarter of a fund, and looking at the whole picture. I mean, it's a quarter of this fund, but in terms of the whole project that they were looking at, I think it was about 12%. Of the whole ongoing works of around about 800,000-900,000. This is not the fund I think that is for is for that. There are funds that are available. So for me, I'll be sticking with my motion unless there's another amendment coming up.
Okay, Raymond, could you put your motion in the chat, please? And we'll see that there. And Wally, that's the one that you're seconding.
I just want to know then, why did we keep deferring them and just not nip them in the bud at the start and say, no, we're not giving you anything, rather than deferring to dip meetings and meetings and giving them slight hope that they're going to get something from us?
Can I come in on that, Chair?
Yeah.
Yes, certainly come in.
I think my mindset has been clear at the start, and I think, Jan, you were quite clear that you were wanting to give them something. So, and that's the way that it goes with members. Okay. So, I wouldn't think that we haven't. I wouldn't think that we've been leading anybody on here. I think that members have their considerations, and you rightly said at that time, Jan, that you were quite keen to give them something. But yeah. I'd said that even at that point that I wasn't so, and this is the final decision making process.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Okay, we'll just wait to get your motion in there. Matthew, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is obviously a really, really important one. The project, for the town of Wick. I might just to make sure I fully understand. I'm just wondering, would it be? I've listened very, very carefully to what Raymond said and Jan, particularly Raymond. Is it possible, perhaps, if we can, to have a short go into private session to help me to understand maybe a little bit more?
Yes, I don't see a problem if we want to have a recess for. Is that
Thank you.
Okay? I think we'll stop the tape there if that's all right, Anne. I'll open up to you, Raymond, now if you want to come back in on your points.
Yeah, thanks to Mark for explaining some of the confidential nature of some of the figures there just now, and appreciate that. Yeah, so what I'm suggesting is that we reject the application that's currently on the table from the Wick Harbour Authority, but I think that we need to be really, really clear that that does not mean to say that we're not supportive of everything that the Harbour are doing. We're aware of the fact that there are other funding mechanisms that are out there, and that there are other organisations that are helping the Wick Harbour Authority. The council is in about that. They are discussing funding options that are available, and as I understand it, that can be through Highland Opportunities. It could be through other stakeholders that we don't need to name, but I would imagine that there are other opportunities there. However, I would say as well that we know that community regeneration funding will be continuing. And if things are still, looking as though there's a necessity to support the harbour from this fund, at that juncture, I think we could revisit if we need to, and it doesn't deteriorate at all from the fact that we're making a decision to conclude this particular phase of the funding, and that is by looking at the other three applicants and to reduce, as Mark mentioned there just now, one of the options in terms of one of the applicants, and then to and if they need to, if they require that element, they could get that from the next round of funding as well. So I think we do have the ability to be able to agree corporately that we're trying to support all of the organisations that have given us these funds. Thank them very much for the work that they've done, and by no means are we being exclusive. We're trying to be as inclusive as possible here, but I think that 100,000 from which is a quarter of the fund, going to one application when there are other considerations with other funds, I think are more reasonable for that for their application to sit, or for them to get their money from, allows us to concentrate on the other community projects, and let's have the Wick Harbour along to one of the area business meetings, and we can make sure that we are supporting them as best as we can, and to get an update on where they are with the discussions that we've all had with them, and that they've had with others probably since then, and to get ourselves up to make sure that we are fully up to speed with how things are going there. But so I'm talking about the other three applications. Two of them, if you just allow me to make my final reference. So the John O'Groats Development Trust would receive 25,000. The Thursday Community Cafe would be 25,520, and Homestart Caithness would be 70,547, with the reduction of the element that was suggested by the officer there just now, and that can actually be looked at, if required, at the next round of funding. And I hope that that's agreeable to members. Thanks very much.
Thanks for that, Raymond. Mark, do you want to add anything? Dave, you're on mute, Mark.
Sorry, Chair. Just to clarify those amounts, that the Thursday Community Cafe had sought 27,520. So I've looked at two options on the breakdown of costs from Homestart. So you could reduce, to bring it within the amount of funding available, you could reduce it by the quoted cost for either the security alarm, which is 2,405, or the office costs at £2,460. Either of those would bring it below the threshold to come within the area allocation available. I don't know if anybody has any particular strong view on that.
Chair,
I think they should keep the security given what happens in the these little streets in Wick.
Can I suggest, Jan, that we ask that we let them know what the mindset of members is, and to leave the decision with them as which one is the more important element, or the least important element.
Yeah, I agree. It should be up to them how they want to spend their money.
Thanks.
Okay, then we'll just pull this back then. So for the Wick Harbour, we're proposing to reject the application.
That's correct.
Is everybody happy with taking into consider everything that's been said by Raymond and Mark? You know, taking the whole thing on board, that we reject that. Are we all happy with that?
I wouldn't say that we're happy, but I would say
I don't
we're happy.
happy.
I mean, we have
I
to.
can understand the reasoning behind it.
Accept the rejection, if that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, I can understand the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
You know. Okay.
Yeah. And as you suggested, we'll get Wick Harbour along to an EBM as well, to see the progress there.
That would be good.
Yes, certainly. Okay, so we'll reject that one. So we're back to you again, Mark. Then, so for the other three, are you just quite happy to go for?
If I can suggest a value that would cover both options, would be £68,100 for home start.
Okay. Happy with that.
And then,
are we all in
and then I can change it to either or with a future change request approved by members, depending on which element of the works they go for.
That's fine.
Right. That's fine. Just to keep everything clear then, so we're approving the John O'Groats one, we are approving the Home Start and the Thurso Community Cafe. All in agreement with that.
Subject to the clarification.
Subject to the clarification. Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you.
Well,
thanks
don't go
for
very far.
persistent members. No, I'm not going anywhere. No.
Right. Well, go on to item 7 now.
Yep.
Regeneration Fund.
Item 7. Just pull up the report. So again, I don't propose to go through the application in detail. Members will be aware because this was discussed at committee in November, and members approved the ring fencing of £50,000 of community regeneration funding towards a project within the wider scope of Wick Town Centre regeneration works. An application has now been submitted for footway, road surface and traffic calming improvements, and is appended to this report. We've gone through the assessment. It is eligible, and I'm happy to answer any questions through the chair that members may have.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Raymond?
I don't have any questions, just a contribution maybe to the discussion on this paper. This, I think the consideration that we have here is that it will complement some of the other works that have been ongoing in the town centre, and as part of a suite of considerations, we already have the Whitechapel Road toilets, the work of the Wick Development Trust, the application to the Scottish Government in terms of the Wick Street design, and a number of other improvements, including the ancillary project, which the other elements of the ancillary project, which we have attracted funding for. And to be able to keep that going, there has to be some sort of consideration for sustainability. In other words, we're needing to look at other options going forward, and this is one of them. My understanding is that it would be complemented by the roads capital programme, and that discussions have already been had with the roads team, and that they're happy because I mean, folks would see that as a responsibility of the council to maintain those roads and pathways in any case. But what we're looking at is additionality here, in terms of the traffic calming measures and discussions in terms of how best we can direct traffic in terms of coach parking and in terms of taxi ranks and having them designated again, because you can hardly see them given the state of some of the area down there. So it's a fully complementary consideration that we're looking here. So it has my support, and I hope others believe it's a good use of public funds as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Raymond. Anyone else want to comment or question? No.
I agree with everything Raymond said. It makes a change.
Yeah. So we're all happy to agree. Agree
Excellent.
with it. Yes.
Agree with the recommendation to approve the funds.
Agree with the recommendations. That's it.
Excellent.
To pay the money. Been ring fenced anyway. So yeah. Thanks very much for that, Mark. Thanks for your contribution.
Thanks for your time. Thank you, members.
Much needed.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. We're only got a couple left. That's not so bad. We'll move on to item 9, Wick Common Good Fund. And Sarah, I believe you're here. Sarah, sorry, or here somewhere. Where is she? Sarah, yes. I'll hand over to you now. Or is she not here?
She's here, but she's on mute.
Yeah.
Oh. Is she there or not? I'm not seeing. Can anybody see her?
So, Chair, she is on the call, but she's on mute. I'll just try and get in touch with her and make sure that she doesn't have a technical issue.
Right, thanks, Phil. I can't see her on that one.
Okay. Don't need that.
You've joined us, Sam. Thank you. Hi.
Sorry, I'd just been taking a phone call. I got you like volume down. I thought I'd got time in between to fit in, but obviously not.
No problem. Yes. So is it the Wick Common Good Fund?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, members, this is, have we got Matt here as well? Matt Johnson was going to be in on the back. I think Phil might be able to pick up on that and check if he's on the call as well. The report before yourselves, members, it's quite a lengthy report with a number of appendices to it. Sparked a number of comments. It relates to consultation on the proposal to dispose of just small pieces of land for the legal purposes of creating permission to oversail for wind farms. They're known as ribbon leases, and they create rights rather than actual possession. So as a result of the fact that these areas of ribbon leases, primarily the requirement is to oversail the common good land south of the river at Riverside Park, we were required to do consultation. In looking at the consultation, we were very careful to consider the legal position because we're required to consult, we're required to be as precise as we can on the consultation. But neither the statute nor the guidance says that we can't do what we've done in this case, which is to consult in a general way. And we were seeking general permission to be able to negotiate these ribbon leases at appropriate times. And there's reasons behind that. The main reason being that a number of these developments are funding and time limited, and things tend to move and change beyond our control. And to have consulted and gone to court separately on each individual request that may come in the future would potentially put us in difficulty in Wick Common Good being able to take advantage of those arrangements and therefore any income generating potential. I've covered that in just briefly in point 3.2. The consultation ran for the full 8-week period, generated quite a bit of interest, number of comments. There's an Appendix 1 contains the analysis to the consultation process and indicates how many responses were received. It also summarises the type of themes received in each response, that the response is either for or against the proposal contained in the consultation. Members will see from 5.2 in the report and from the analysis itself that breaking it down on a percentage calculation, 75% of total responses received were in opposition of the proposal, which is, if you take it on simple percentage terms, is that the majority were opposing it. But if you read that alongside the representations that came in, and you're obliged to take those into account in considering the proposals, you'll see that some of those objections were based on things that fell out with the consultation, so didn't address the precise consultation subject matter, but maybe looked at it more because they objected to wind farms in general, felt that Caithness was being overused for the construction of wind farms. There were issues relating to comments and concerns about where focus should be more on the development of the town of Wick than the issues of the wind farms. So all of that has to be part and parcel of the balancing process, members, before you today to consider how best to carry the proposal forward. And those sort of things need to be taken into account. You need to look at everything, but you need to look at it holistically. So you're looking at the representations that came in. We've prepared in that document, because that will have to be published on the council website. We've prepared the form of responses to those representations. So we've answered those representations. So you can see the view being brought forward on the council's behalf in response to those representations. You also have to consider the best interest for Wick Common Good Fund and therefore the wider community at large. Wick Common Good Fund being a recently reactivated fund, it has only just started on its path of income generation, and this does represent quite a good financial benefit in the terms of income generation for Wick as a whole. And obviously this is the first of these sort of requests coming forward, and there's no reason to believe there won't be other ones that will pass over the common good area in that space that we would be able to take advantage of from a point of view of income generation. As mentioned, there's a number of documents there. The representations and responses document is lengthy. I wouldn't propose to go through that in any detail. The analysis is a much briefer document and contains the themes, but perhaps if I just open it to questions now, that would be best. I see we've also got Matt with us now. He's here to handle any directly property or estate related questions that may be not directly in the point of view of common good, so I'm sure he'll be available to answer any questions as well, members, should you have them.
Thanks very much for that, Sarah. Has any members got any questions or points? Jan? You're on mute, Jan.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah, and thanks very much for the report. And I've read all this sort of representations and things that's come in as well. I just want to clarify the fact, because I actually live and drive down this road just 2 and 3 times a day. There's work actually started already just at the corner at the railway station. They're work there, and they've actually taken away a bit of the hospital ground across the road going round the corner. So I'm actually not certain, but I'm sure this is what this is all for. They've also purchased up on Thursday Road a house, and they've demolished the house. You know, that I think that, yeah. But further, obviously, in the route they're going, they've started work on that route. I mean, I'm taking that as correct. Did you know it started
my
work?
understanding at the moment is my understanding at the moment is we have a short-term workaround because timescales changed on this matter, and we had hoped to take things logically and do it, have the consultation completed and any court application completed before the question of the lease transaction took place. But then timescales changed, and there've been quite a movable feast on this one. So we did we are having in process a short-term workaround, which is whereby there is a ribbon lease to be option to be taken on the piece of land adjacent to the common good land, but with attendant rights to allow the wind sale and the benefit of the wind sale financially to relate to the common good land. That will complete in due course. It hasn't completed yet because the lease transaction is still ongoing. It's nearing its conclusion, but it will soon complete. And my understanding is that as far as that transaction is concerned, no work will start until that lease transaction is completed. And as I say, it's close to conclusion. As for the opposite side of the road, I can't speak for that. That's not within either the short-term workaround or the common good aspect of it. I am aware from just general information passed during the consultation that the wind farm had or developers had purchased, or somebody had purchased a cottage that they've subsequently knocked down. I'm not sure whether we had any involvement with that. I personally didn't, because it wasn't a common good matter. So whilst I'm aware that during the course of this common good consultation, proceeding to its natural conclusion in the sense of following processes, which includes the court application, things will be happening anyway. That's because we have the short-term workaround in place. That is not a permanent situation. That's something that then will change once, and hopefully once we've gone through the conclusion to the court proceedings. Should members you choose not to approve the proposal, and should it go to court and not be approved there, the current developers that will be signing the lease to the short-term workaround are very aware that that is a risk, and they're aware that that would mean they would only be able to operate this one situation. What it would also then mean, as far as we were concerned, would be that we would be stymied for future requests, because this isn't something, either that or we would have to negotiate an appropriate arrangement with the general fund whereby they permitted that on an ongoing basis. That's something that would have to be discussed in far more detail. So this was something that we had to find ourselves in a situation of finding a solution to with very little time to do that, but it allowed this deal to be maintained really for the benefit of Wick. And there are risks around refusing it, in that it's not unheard of for energy companies to simply seek to compulsorily purchase a piece of land that they're going to wind sale over, and then obviously they don't have to give any provision to the local area or the town of Wick or Wick Common Good or whatever for the use and wind sale rights over that land. And we were hoping to avoid that as well. So Matt may have some idea as to whether or not they've started any work, but my understanding is, under the terms of the arrangements that we've been discussing, there's been nothing started as yet.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Raymond, do you want to come in?
As I understand it, the cottage that we're talking about here just now on Thursday Road was actually subject to planning back in 2008. It was subsequently purchased outright by the wind farm developer from the owner at that time, and they've knocked it down because it was their right to be able to do that, and they sought planning to it, and planning was approved for it, and that's why it's been so. That's really nothing to do with the common good, but the oversale, I hear what you're saying, Sarah, but there has been quite a lot of public backlash on this one. We've been subject to it. The council's been subject to it. I do recall at the time saying that I'm not so sure that we actually got this right in terms of our communication to the public, and therefore but there's only so much you can actually say in a communication to the public to try and have them on board, and we clearly haven't managed to do that. While we are, as members of council, we have to take into consideration the best, the best considerations for the common good and the financial viability of the common good. We are still duty bound to be able to consider the representations by members of the public. Do we have the option here of not going with the general the general consideration here in terms of the oversale rights, and actually do it on a case-by-case basis as applications are put forward?
Yes, that is certainly an option. As we know, if a case is put forward by taking into account the consultation process, the committee timetabling and any court application that would flow from that, we could take up to a year for sorting that out just in time. Hopefully it wouldn't take that long, but it could be up to a year. Obviously, once we get to the court process, that's out with our control because we are tied by their timetable, depending how busy they are. But we usually average about 4 months for a non-opposed application, between 4 and 6 months, depending on the court lists. So it could be somewhere between 9 months to 12 months, and it would be, we could lose out on some options as a result of that. Having said that, if the wind farm developers were able to give us sufficient notice, there's no reason why that shouldn't happen. It's a difficult one to judge. I don't know how much notice they get. I don't know how their funding operates, in the sense that my only experience really is of this one, and it's been a huge learning experience. So I don't know whether their funding is just within a year, or if it's a 3 year, that they have to have things all lined up and in place. I'm not sure. Again, perhaps Matt can give a bit of input on that if he's dealt with these in the past. But yes, we can certainly just say we're only going to deal with this one at this stage and see what happens. There's nothing to stop you doing that, members. You can amend the consultation to reflect that, and it wouldn't be a significant amendment, so that it wouldn't need a reconsultation.
Do you mind if I come back in, Chair, on that and respond? Sarah, I can understand what you're saying in terms of, the risks, but at this current point in time, I'm not aware of any other oversale that's been requested as a standard. At this point in time, each of the wind farm developers, whether it's been up at Gurnigo Street, going along Henrietta Street, where they've had to negotiate considerations of tenants and the loss of the part of their garden, and that was part of the HRA. I am not aware of another similar generalised oversale per se. I'm aware that different applications come forward based on the transport regulations that they have to get through the planning system, whereas this one would just give them a carte blanche to be able to do that. And I think that that's one of the big concerns of the public. I'm not sure where the risk would come in there, that maybe they might not go ahead with it. Well, actually, they're going ahead with nearly every other one that I'm aware of, because they deal with it on a case-by-case basis, depending on the route that they've got to go, and that's agreed through the planning process. So, I would be keen to hear from what Matt's got to say on that, because it would have to be substantially different from virtually everything else that follows our process for oversale with all the other wind farms that are going through Caithness at this point in time. And we could be opening up a door, and you would have to balance that. You could be opening up a door where everybody wants to oversale and chop down a tree or top a tree or whatever, based on what we're talking about here. Yes, that would be balanced with the increase in money coming into the Common Good Fund, but I think that there's got to be some sort of balance in terms of what the public are saying to us in terms of their common good, because they'll get that money coming in one way or the other, whether it's the generalised way of doing it or case by case. And you would be balancing that on the risk of them not wanting to oversale over that part at all and choose another route. I can't see why they would. So I'm keen to hear on this one from Matt. Thanks.
Okay, Raymond, thanks for that. Hey, Wally, do you want to come in just before I bring Matt in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to compliment Sarah on her responses to those who responded to the consultation. You've done very well there, Sarah, and trying to reason with all these people, all these representations. So well done there. A lot of the representations, I read them all, have pointed to the Community Council and have said, I hope you, in other words, will consult with the Royal Borough Wick Community Council. And they haven't responded. That's very curious. I'm very curious as to why they did not respond. Anybody any idea?
I certainly served
Thanks,
them with
Sarah.
a copy of the consultation when it commenced. I was quite surprised not to hear from them at all.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. Matt, do you want to come in now?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me along to your area committee. I think I'm right in saying that what we're seeking here is, you're absolutely right, is a general permission to oversell common good land, not just for one developer, but potentially for any other future developers coming forward. Having said that, each case will be looked at on, just because we've got that permission doesn't necessarily mean that we'll grant that permission, and each case would be looked at on a case-by-case basis, whereby we would look at, do they have they got planning? What are their timescales? Do they have alternatives? So the case-by-case basis would be basically on the variables associated with whatever wind farm that might be. Now, in this case, we outsourced the negotiation of this one to Bidwells, who acted on behalf of the council or the common good. Now, the value associated with these oversales is quite complex, in as much as it depends on the number of turbines, the extent of the oversale, as I say, the number of alternatives, etc. And so we would still, if another wind farm operator came forward, we could look at that one on a case-by-case basis, and the consideration may differ. We may be able to get more of a financial consideration, if you will, depending on the circumstances of that particular case. So whilst, yes, we are seeking a general permission to oversell this common good ground, so that we don't have to come back and consult on every, we'll still obviously consult with members, but we don't have to go back to the consultation to, on a case-by-case basis, which costs money, which has been picked up by the developer. But it also, as Sarah says, there's a timeline there, which, the consultation itself takes a number of months, and quite often these developers are looking to get that oversale as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks. Any other members wanting to add anything more or ask anything?
Well, I still never got my question answered regarding what they're doing round past the railway station and round past the police station corner and going down that road avenue with the trees, because the traffic lights there, and they've done one side, and it's as though they're getting ready for the wind turbines going right round, because they've lowered all the curbs. Have you not been round that way, Willie or Raymond? Round Bank Road.
Yeah, but I believe
So
that
who gave them
Sarah,
permission to start that?
no, I think that that Sarah was talking about that as being a one-off. This is not that's within the scope of that wind farm developers. Their planned transportation just for that one particular wind farm and that one set. This isn't. This is out with the whole process that we're actually agreeing here just now. I think I'm right in that, Sarah. Am I right?
Yes, in some respects, but I am not sure that they would have started work until they'd actually completed the lease transaction. And my understanding, as I was discussing last week, is that hasn't actually got to its conclusion yet. It's imminent. It's literally, it was expected to happen last week. It hasn't happened. I think it'll be this, and I think that's purely down to leave on each side. So it is imminent in that regard. But I would have thought any preparation work wouldn't have been done prior to that transaction being completed?
Well, I can assure you, Sarah, it has started, and it started last week.
Okay, thanks, Jan. Right, members, anybody else got anything to add? Raymond, you want to come back in there?
Yeah, see, what we've got here in Appendix 3 was based on a proposal to dispose by way of ribbon lease small portions of common good land located at Riverside Park, south of Wick, south of the River Wick, to wind farm developers to facilitate the oversale of turbines and equipment necessary for the installation, maintenance and decommissioning of such wind farms. The problem that we had in terms of the communication of this when it goes out to the public is the fact that that many of them believe that we've actually gotten rid of, disposed of common good land. So the point that you're saying, Matt, yeah, I know you're going like that with your head, Matthew, but the way that the general public have read that statement is it's almost as if to say, well, why bother coming back to consult with members and consult with those who have got the say over the common good, because of the fact that they could actually do what they like, because theoretically we've disposed of it, but what we're disposing of is the air above the common good land as such, and not the actual land. And that is where I think a lot of the difficulty, as Willie was saying, I think you've done a great job in being able to respond to the queries coming in. But I think that it's the statement there. I mean, I'm going to be quite happy. Based on the fact that this is we will have the ultimate decision on what will oversale that on a case-by-case basis, which you've clearly detailed. I'll be quite happy to put this to full council. And the reason that it's going to full council, we understand, is because of the fact that full council has the say over all the common goods. So it's not Inverness telling Wick what it's going to do. It's the fact that all members are responsible for all common goods. You could actually look at that as Wick members turning around and telling the Inverness common good that you can't do anything without our approval, and that is the case too. So on that basis, I'll be happy to go with the recommendations, but we need to get our communication to the community in a manner that they fully understand that they are absolutely in full control of what oversales that land on a case-by-case basis. And if you can finally confirm that, Matthew, I'll be happy to go with the recommendations. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Raymond. Matt, you want to come in there? Or?
Yeah, no, you're quite right, Councillor Bremner. The word disposal is quite evocative, and when you read it in the Appendix 3, yeah, people start, oh, you're disposing of inalienable common good land. You can't possibly do that. We're leasing like 1 square foot of common good land, which will never be occupied. You're right, it will continue to be amenity land. You can walk over it, you can do anything you want, and people will be the developers will be oversealing it as and when required, for which the council or the Wick Common Good will receive a considerable consideration for the benefit of that. Yeah, so nothing really further to add, to be fair.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Right. Wally, you want to come in there?
Just to add to the item, I don't think the work's going on in the corner, as Jan was mentioned, has anything to do with this application here today. It's not on the plan. It's not on the plan. The plan that we've got here shows the area that's going to be oversailed. There's no mention of this corner, which I know very well, Jan, as well. Reading through the report, this wind farm company, they're pretty powerful, and I can see if they don't get things their own way, they'll make a compulsory purchase, and that is it. And they'll probably get it. If not, they'll go elsewhere. Now, reading through the representations as well, I can see what Sarah mentioned, how some people have got the wrong idea here. They're not attacking the theme of the consultation whatsoever, which that rules that out for me. And as far as I can see here, we're only talking about 3 trees here, which have to come down, and 1 or 2 have to be lopped. Well, I don't see any problem with that, quite honestly. And I'd be quite happy to go with a recommendation. Absolutely.
Okay,
thanks,
well,
Chair.
thanks for that. Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of money if, and it's big if it's just 3 trees getting lopped. That's a low price to pay for a substantial sum of money that actually, if we wished, could be used partly to plant a lot more trees somewhere else, probably, amongst other things. But Raymond's right talking about the comms on this one. But going back to Councillor McEwen's point there, we should be able to find out, it should be simple, the works that Jan's referring to, what are they? And we obviously assume they are lawful. That's, to me, is the sort of 2 things the public would like to know. And that's exactly the question that Jan's asking, and probably she wants to know as well. Thank you.
Thanks. And finally, sorry, Jan, you want to come back in there?
Yeah, because it's not our road workers that's working there. It's not the Highland Council road workers that's working there. So it is. But going back to the public, I mean, when they've spoken to me, I have said that we're not giving away, or we're not selling common good land. What we're doing is renting some airspace to them. So we're getting paid for air, which is not heard of in England or anywhere else. So it's just airspace they're getting. So I'm getting that message through. But again, I just don't know what's going on in that corner, because I don't know if it's not our Highland Council workers that's fixing the pavements and digging it up and flattening it. But I could go down and ask. That's what, because I pass it all the time. I'll go and ask, and I'll get back to you on that. Yeah,
thanks, Jan. I'm sure you will. Yeah.
But I'm happy to go with the recommendations and put it to the council.
Right. Anybody else got anything to add to that? No. So shall we agree the recommendations that it goes to the full council? Everybody happy with that? Yes.
Agreed. Yeah.
Agreed. Excellent. Thanks, Matt and Sarah for that. Yes. Thanks very much for the work done on that.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Right, folks. Thanks for that. Now, just note that the committee has agreed to the recommendations that it goes to the full council. Okay. Right. Move on now to the last item, item 10. Award discretionary awards. You will note the sums are there, and that's also got a total of just over £15,000 for a number of awards there. And the Wick and East Caithness, they had a total of £16,051 for 2 awards that went out there to various organisations. So that just note, if you're happy to note that following awards, thank you. And just one final thing, members are requested to note that details of other issues of interest relating to the Caithness Committee are available through the bulletin on the Council's intranet. So members, thanks very much for the meeting. Good to see you all again, and the sun is still shining, so maybe get a chance to get out. And Jan, you maybe get down there and find out what's happening.
Well.
Okay. Thanks very much, folks. And
thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Matthew.